Incredible moment. Single mom, 35, discovers transformative truth after helping lost billionaire. Emily wiped the last smudge off the table, her mind racing with thoughts of bills due tomorrow and the groceries left unchecked on her list. Another hectic day lay ahead, with barely enough time for a quick breakfast before school drop-off and her early shift at the diner. But as she glanced around the quaint little diner, her eyes landed on a disheveled man sitting alone in a corner, his gaze lost in the rain-soaked street outside. Something inside her jolted. She felt an instinctual urge to help, sensing the weight of his isolation that seemed so intimately familiar to her own. With a warm cup of coffee in hand, she approached him, her smile genuine despite her fatigue. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice filled with a hope that he might somehow break out of his shell. He looked up, startled, then sighed, nodding quietly. As they began to speak, she shared her dreams for her 10-year-old daughter Lily, the sacrifices she made, and the relentless grind of working 2 jobs just to keep them afloat. Each word weighed on her heart. Part of her feared he would see her troubles as nothing more than a story, an interesting tale in a mundane diner. Jack listened, captivated, feeling the sharp contrast of their lives. In Emily's struggles, he sensed an authenticity that had long eluded him. He was a man defined by wealth and expectations, lost in a life that surrounded him, yet often felt hollow. Their conversation illuminated the gaps in his spirit, a spark igniting a longing to connect, to find purpose beyond his family's isolating charm. But lurking within him was a paralyzing fear. The deeper he delved into Emily's world, the more he risked losing the only life he knew. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Emily felt the gentle pull of hope rising within her. Yet she wrestled with anxiety as the connection deepened. Jack's late-night texts became a lifeline for her, someone who saw her not just as a struggling waitress, but as a person with potential. But shadows loomed. She knew the class divide existed, and what if Jack's family discovered their friendship? The thought made her muscles tense, her breath irregular. An increasing sense of unease settled in Jack as well. Every moment spent with Emily felt exhilarating, yet every glance from his family seemed to scream danger. He could lose everything, let alone the laughter and warmth that surfaced in their talks. Internal conflict churned violently, leaving him questioning every choice. As tensions escalated, Lily's innocent mention of Jack during a presentation at school rattled him. Her pride in sharing his name only complicated feelings of guilt and fear. They had become friends, but could their lives unintentionally collide in ways neither anticipated? Now, standing at a precipice, the decision weighed heavily on both. Would Jack choose the predictable route of privilege, or dare to step into the unknown where Emily awaited, just as she balanced her own fear of his eventual withdrawal? The urge to connect and the urge to protect collided in a storm of emotions, their fates intertwining more than either could see in that moment. Emily stood in the kitchen of the diner, hands trembling as she prepared her usual morning routine. The clatter of dishes echoed around her, yet the noise felt muted. Her mind drifted to Jack and his blue eyes, filled with unshed emotions. Could she allow herself to hope for something deeper than friendship? That question hovered over her as she wiped her hands on her apron, glancing out the window toward the gathering storm clouds. Each day spent with Jack chipped away at her wariness. His messages were now woven into the fabric of her daily life, replacing hollow interactions and meaningless chatter with profound conversations about dreams and aspirations. It struck her one evening how deeply Jack listened, not just to her words, but also to the silences in between. But as the friendship blossomed, so too did the fear of exposure. Her heartbeat quickened as she recalled the look on Lily's face when she talked about Jack, innocent and glowing with admiration. The prospect of their worlds colliding haunted her. Could she risk Lily's heart in a pursuit that might end in betrayal or disappointment? Each moment felt more like a tightrope walk, balancing her desires against an invisible threat looming on the horizon. In Jack's world, the stakes were no less ominous. Nights spent contemplating his connection with Emily left him tangled in uncertainty. His family's expectations wrapped tightly around him, suffocating his burgeoning sense of self. He could almost hear their voices, reminding him of obligations, success, and lineage. Yet each time he connected with Emily, he felt a shift beneath the surface, a gnawing realization that wealth had not led him to fulfillment. Jack found himself in the office one afternoon, surrounded by the glossy displays of his family's business empire. The weight of his last conversation with Emily hung heavily over him. "What makes you truly happy?" Her voice echoed, a question that had prodded him like a needle. Staring at the family portraits embellished in gold frames, he grappled with the truth. He was tethered to a life molded by others' expectations, not his own choices. The thought of abandoning that for something unknown was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. Days passed, with each moment spent apart only amplifying their frustrating distresses. They both existed in the hesitant spaces of longing and fear, making decisions that felt increasingly impactful. Emily stumbled upon the diner's bulletin board one day, an advertisement for a community workshop where people shared stories of personal growth and recovery. The notion sparked a glimmer of optimism in her. Perhaps she could confront her fears head-on, find her voice, and redefine her circumstances beyond menial labor and anonymity. Jack, on the other hand, found himself staring blankly at a contract that could define his future. The choice at hand felt more like a burden than an opportunity. If he signed, he sealed his fate within walls of privilege, but also risked losing any chance of pursuing authenticity. Each minute he deliberated felt like it siphoned away precious time, pulling him further from Emily and the truth she had unwittingly revealed within him. In an unexpected moment of clarity, driven by the need to break free from the mundane, Emily decided on a plan. If they could both confront their fears, a woman fighting for her dreams and a man searching for purpose, then perhaps they could find the strength to unite those disparate worlds. But could they face their personal battles together? The thought of confronting their families felt daunting, yet hope ignited a fierce resolve within her. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the unknown press down on her. The urge to step toward Jack loomed larger than her fears, an electric pulse urging her to leap into the uncharted territory of possibility. The moment felt pivotal, and as Emily prepared for the workshop that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was at the edge of something monumental. The thought nagged at her, leaving a question unanswered. What would happen if they dared to confront their lives together? With her mind set and pulse quickening, she suddenly realized the first step toward discovery might not just lead to clarity about herself, but perhaps also reveal truths about Jack. She picked up her phone, heart racing at the thought of reaching out to him. Would he be there to fight this together, or would the pressure of his world crush their burgeoning connection? Unbeknownst to both of them, the stakes would become clearer. The storm was no longer just in the sky. It loomed in their hearts as the two dared to embrace connection while navigating the gales of expectation and fear. Emily glanced nervously at the workshop flyer clutched in her hand as she entered the small community center, her heart thumping with a blend of excitement and apprehension. The dim lighting created a cozy atmosphere, but her mind was captivated by a maelstrom of thoughts. What stories would be shared? Who would she confront, both outwardly and within herself? The realization that she was about to step outside of her daily routine and into a space of vulnerability both exhilarated and terrified her. Finding a seat at the back of the room, Emily settled in as others filtered in. She could feel the energy shifting in the air. A collective anticipation hung like the scent of brewing coffee. As introductions began, she listened intently to the mix of voices and backgrounds. Each speaker seemed to breathe authenticity and pain as they recounted their journeys of overcoming challenges. It was both inspiring and maddening. Could she share her own hidden struggles? Would anyone understand the knot of fear and hope that twisted within her? When her turn came, Emily stood up, her legs slightly shaking. She clutched the edges of the podium, drawing strength from the wooden surface beneath her fingertips. "Hi, I'm Emily," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I work at a diner, and I've always felt stuck, like I'm living someone else's life." A wave of honesty washed over her. "I've been a single mom for years, but recently I've been questioning everything. About my happiness, my friendships, even about love." The last word felt weighty as it escaped her lips, echoing the uncertainty she felt about Jack. The audience nodded, and in their eyes she saw understanding flicker like a light bulb. Encouraged, she continued, "I've developed a friendship with someone who sees me differently, and I can't help but wonder if it's more than that. But," she hesitated, wrestling with vulnerability, "what if it leads to disappointment? It feels risky, especially when I think about how my decisions affect my daughter." As she spoke, words flowed from her heart, and with each sentence she could feel layers of her anxieties being stripped away. In sharing her story, she was forced to confront her own unhappiness from a new perspective. It wasn't just a fear of the relationship with Jack unraveling. It was about her fear of stepping into her own power, her own desires, and her own dreams. Returning to her seat, Emily's pulse raced, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline that came with articulating her truth. She had known all along that her life was not a mere script dictated by others, but a narrative she could rewrite. There was a liberating sense of agency in acknowledging her ambition, her worth beyond the confines of being a waitress and a mother, and the potential she held. Across town, Jack sat frozen before the family contract. The gold-embossed papers blurred in front of him as he replayed Emily's resonance within his mind. What made him happy? He realized he'd been wrestling with the emptiness that came from leading a life full of privileges while feeling an underlying sense of discontent. He couldn't ignore the inkling that only his connection with Emily sparked true fulfillment. He was torn. The expectations from his family suffocated him on one side, while fear of venturing into the unknown knotted his stomach. Yet, as he recalled Emily's words about confronting fears, he thought about his own dreams surfacing just beneath the chaos. Could he muster the courage to reject the contract and define his future, or risk something extraordinary by pursuing a path aligned with his own desires instead of his family's? The weight of his decision pressed heavily against him. Following an impulsive urge, he picked up his phone. With a newfound determination, he began typing a message to Emily. Hours later, as Emily returned home from the workshop, her heart still buzzing with excitement, she noticed a new message from Jack lighting up her phone. "Can we talk? I think it's time to face our fears together." In that moment, she understood that the collision of their worlds was now inevitable. The storm that had been brewing was finally about to break, with consequences neither of them could yet imagine. Would they meet this challenge head-on, or let their fears drive them apart? Emily sank into the couch, her fingers trembling over Jack's message. The brief words pulsed with significance, ringing in her ears like the tolling of a distant bell. She couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation could alter her course, but the familiar anxiety of uncertainty gripped her. What if the discussions ahead revealed more about her than she was ready to confront? As dusk settled in, casting long shadows through the window, she replayed events of the day in her mind. The workshop had awakened something dormant within her, a flicker of ambition she hadn't seen for years. The participants' stories echoed in her thoughts, each a reminder that overcoming fear required confronting one's truth. She wanted to believe in the possibility of change, that she could forge a path not only for herself, but for her daughter too. Yet every time she thought of Jack, her heart swelled with conflicting emotions. Did he really want to face their fears together, or was he merely echoing her own words back to her? The thought was unsettling, and once again doubt crept in. She rose from the couch, determined to channel her nerves into something productive. This was a moment, one filled with potential. In the small kitchen, Emily began to prepare dinner, her hands mechanically slicing vegetables while her mind tangled itself in a web of possibilities. Maybe she could open up fully, not just to Jack, but to herself. What did she want in this life beyond the known routine of her diner and her daughter? For the first time in years, the question tasted raw and fresh on her tongue. Suddenly, she recalled something the workshop facilitator had mentioned. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. It resonated deeply, and she felt a surge of determination. She would explore her own desires instead of suffocating them beneath layers of what-ifs. Determined, Emily took a deep breath, a mental plan forming within her. She would speak to Jack, yes, but she would also give voice to her own dreams, confronting not just the dynamics of their relationship, but her identity as well. What did she want? Good grief! The thought excited and terrified her. She sensed the emotional stakes rising as she connected the dots between her life and what lay ahead. This wasn't just about romance. It was about believing she deserved something more, a vibrant life full of choices. After pushing the last dish into the oven, she took out her phone again, fingers hovering over Jack's message. She needed to respond. "Can we meet tomorrow?" she typed, before adding, "I want to talk." Hit send. The action felt momentous. It was a step into the unknown that would shift the landscape of her life. Before she could spiral into overthinking, she faced the mirror in her hallway. The reflection staring back was a woman tinged with uncertainty but warmed by resolve. The next day, as she prepped for work at the diner, her mind was filled with Jack's impending response. Would his interest be genuine, or would he reflect the very doubts that had haunted her? Every moment felt laden with energy, anticipation vibrating in the air around her. She knew the stakes. They were more than just words exchanged. They were the foundation for a shift, potentially transforming her life trajectory. A sudden thought struck her. What might Jack see in her beyond the diner? She had always been the waitress, the mother, but now she sought to embody more. A yearning for growth shimmered beneath her surface, and she had to trust she could tap into it. But what if Jack rejected her newfound courage? The thought gnawed at her peace, but she quickly buried it beneath a wave of determination. As the end of her shift approached, her phone chimed. Jack's response appeared. "Tomorrow works. Can we meet at the park around noon?" A visceral rush of hope and unease washed over her. The park, neutral ground, but a place full of memories and possibility. Would it be the site of confrontation or breakthrough? Emily tucked her phone away, readiness mixing with the reality of vulnerability. She was on the brink of something significant, a moment to redefine what her life and desires could encompass. With the sun setting, a shiver of both fear and anticipation coursed through her. Tomorrow would hold revelations and repercussions. She just had to be willing to embrace whatever came next. Could she withstand whatever the truth revealed? In that moment, Emily understood she was no longer willing to hide. Tomorrow was not just a meeting, it was a confrontation with herself, and a question lingering like an unspoken promise. What transformations awaited her by facing the uncertainties together with Jack? Emily woke with a jolt, her mind racing as she recalled the purpose of the day. Today was the day she and Jack would meet at the park, the moment she had anticipated with a crushing weight of both hope and dread. The sunlight filtering through her partially drawn curtains barely penetrated the fog of apprehension that loomed in her thoughts. Her morning routine felt different, each motion filled with a tension that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. As she prepared breakfast for her daughter, the light-hearted chatter of the little girl became a soothing balm to Emily's frayed nerves. Each giggle and inquiry about the day ahead was a reminder of why this confrontation mattered. It was about more than just herself. It was about setting an example of courage for her daughter, showing her that vulnerability was a step toward strength, not a surrender of it. "Mommy, are you okay?" her daughter asked, a hint of concern in her green eyes. "I am, sweetheart, just a little nervous," Emily replied, kneeling to meet her gaze. "But today is going to be a good day, I promise." She kissed the top of her daughter's head and stood, suddenly struck by the thought that those words were meant for her as much as for the child. On her way to work at the diner, she couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had never been this high. It wasn't just about the potential for a relationship with Jack. It was about facing her fears, her aspirations, her entire identity. Every interaction she had at the diner was colored by a sense of urgency. She was more present than ever, aware of the fleeting moments. As her shift wore on, Emily found herself engaged with regular customers and invented little sparks of joy in her routine. She infused conversation with authenticity, sharing laughter and smiles, revealing snippets of her true self that had been muted for so long. For the first time in years, she felt like more than just the woman behind the counter. She was a person, whole and alive. But as each minute crept closer to noon, the excitement was shadowed by fear. Would she be brave enough to voice her dreams? Would Jack meet her newfound courage with acceptance, or would he provide an echo of her greatest fears? By the time she clocked out, Emily's heart raced and her palms felt clammy. She composed herself, reminding herself of the pivotal moment ahead, the pivotal risk of revealing everything she'd hidden. With every step she took toward the park, the ground beneath her feet felt rich with possibilities, but also dense with potential disappointment. When she arrived, the park unfurled before her like a canvas, a gentle expanse where laughter lingered in the air, children dashed around with abandon, and couples strolled hand in hand. Yet, as she scanned the park, it felt eerily still, like the quiet before a storm. And then she saw him. Jack stood at the edge of the playground, his gaze scanning the sea of faces. The sight of him knocked the breath from her lungs. With his casual attire and an unguarded smile, he seemed both familiar and enigmatic, embodying the very essence of the change she yearned for. As she approached, her internal dialogue surged. Self-doubt clashed with the determination she'd nurtured all morning. What if he couldn't see her for who she truly was? What if she did not fully articulate what was buried within? "Hey," Jack greeted, a soft edge to his voice that sent warmth through her. "I'm glad we could meet." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken questions. "Me too," Emily replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As they settled onto a bench under the shade of an old oak tree, her heartbeat quickened. This was it, a transcendent moment to confront the shadows beneath the surface. "Emily, I've been thinking," Jack began, but his voice trailed off, uncertain. What would follow? Would they find the courage to unearth the secrets they each concealed? Emily took a deep breath, her resolve blooming within her. She had to start. "I've thought a lot about us, about what we want." With those words, she knew a door had swung open, and whatever awaited them on the other side would demand all of her bravery. What revelations shrouded beneath the surface, trembling to be set free? Jack hesitated, his brow furrowed as he searched for the right words. Emily could see the gears turning in his mind, the weight of her revelation shimmering between them. For a fleeting moment, she questioned whether she had misstepped, revealing too much too soon. But in the depths of her uncertainty lay a flicker of determination. Now was not the time to retreat. "I've been thinking a lot, too," Jack finally began, his voice almost a whisper, "about how we've both changed in our own ways since—" He trailed off, the unspoken hurt lingering in the air. Emily nodded, willing him to go on. She needed to know, needed to understand if they were still on the same page, or if they had been navigating separate worlds since their last encounter. "We've both faced rough patches," he continued, more resolute now, "but I believe we can be more than what we were. I want to explore that." His honesty caught her off guard, causing her heart to flutter. She had feared that the shadows of their past would loom too large for them to step into the light together. Instead, he was inviting her in, asking for a journey rather than a repeat of old mistakes. "Me too," she whispered, the truth tumbling out of her apprehensive heart. "I've always known there was something more between us, but I never dared to hope it could be real." The words made her feel lighter, as if the burden of her fears was slowly being lifted. Jack met her gaze, eyes glimmering with a mix of hope and trepidation. This was a critical moment, and she sensed that they were both on the precipice of discovering realms of themselves that had remained hidden for years. But then came the pang of doubt, sharp and jarring. Would he understand the shadows of her life, the struggles she faced daily as a single mother? Could he comprehend how far she had traveled, not just in terms of years, but in fighting for her identity and her dreams? "Jack, there's something else," Emily said, the weight of her truth settling on her shoulders again. "I'm not just a mother who occasionally yearns for love. I've worked hard to rebuild myself, to find joy and strength in my own right." She took a sharp breath, steadying herself after that admission. "I need you to see me for everything I am, and not just the echoes of who we used to be." A long silence enveloped them, the park around them fading into a soft blur. Jack's gaze penetrated hers, almost as if he were searching for answers in her eyes. "I want to see you, Emily, but I need to know how you really feel about the direction we're headed," he replied carefully, concern threading through his words. "What are you afraid of?" The question hung, heavy and raw. She could sense the vulnerability in his tone, a reflection of her own. Emily realized that this moment was shaping her narrative anew. It wasn't just the uncovering of secrets, it was an invitation to embrace the whole of herself, the courageous, the fearsome, and the deeply afraid. "I fear that if I open up too much, I might scare you away," she admitted, the admission tasting bittersweet. "I've worked tirelessly to curate a life that is rich and colorful for my daughter, yet I often feel so unworthy, like I could lose it all at any moment." A faint shadow crossed Jack's face, his brow furrowing as he processed her words. She noted the intensity of his focus, feeling that perhaps they were finally venturing into a space where true healing could begin. "Emily, we both have so much to learn about what it means to face the shadows," he said finally, determination threading under his voice. "But I believe we can redefine what we have, together." The promise echoed deep within her, a challenge wrapped in a tender hope. They were intertwined, destined to confront their fears side by side. However, as a small breeze rippled through the leaves of the oak above them, Emily felt an unmistakable chill. The reality remained. The past still held secrets that could shatter the fragile bond they were fostering. Could they fortify their connection amid the looming specter of unresolved issues? Would courage be enough to light their path forward? As the tension thickened, she feared what lay ahead, a confrontation with the shadows she had buried deep, requiring not only vulnerability, but unyielding strength. "What if facing those shadows changes us in ways we can't predict?" she asked, curiosity mingling with trepidation. Jack leaned in closer, determination written across his features. "The time has come to face our truths, Emily." And in that moment, she understood the magnitude of what was unfolding. It would take their shared bravery to uncover new depths of understanding. With their destinies intertwined like roots of that steadfast oak, what hidden truths awaited to be revealed? And could they withstand whatever storms loomed on the horizon? The air between them crackled with an unspoken agreement, a fragile promise that felt like a flimsy bridge stretching over the abyss of the past. Emily's mind raced as she contemplated what it truly meant to open those hidden doors in her life. With every moment spent in Jack's gaze, she felt a magnetic pull between desire and fear, each inch making her more aware of her own limitations. "I want to be seen," she whispered, feeling the weight of those words. "But what if my truths are too heavy for you to carry?" Jack shifted, the intensity of his presence providing a flicker of comfort amidst her rising anxiety. "You're not alone in this. We all carry something. Let's face it together." The initiative in him inspired a choice within Emily, but that didn't fully dissipate the storm brewing inside her. As a single mother, her life splintered into myriad responsibilities, tangling her dreams into a net of practicality. She had once dreamed of travel, art, and adventure, but they felt like distant echoes now, overshadowed by the immediacy of survival, paying bills and ensuring her daughter had every opportunity possible. "What if I can't be the person you think I am?" she said, her voice quivering. "What if I can't manage both sides of who I am, the caretaker and this woman who longs for love?" He reached across the small distance between them, his fingers brushing against hers. The gesture sent a jolt through her system, a reminder of heat, intimacy, and an unyielding human connection. "Then let me help you. Let's figure it out, whatever it looks like." Jack's conviction stirred something deep within her, an impulse to surrender to vulnerability. Perhaps there was strength in allowing herself to be supported. But even as she recognized the growth awaiting them, she felt the shadows within her pulse, a collection of unresolved wounds that could threaten their burgeoning relationship. "Okay," she said, mustering her courage. "I'll try, but I need you to promise me one thing." "Anything," he replied, unwavering. "Promise me you'll share your shadows too. I don't want this to be one-sided. I need to know you are as committed to this as I am." He nodded slowly, absorbing her request. "I promise. But let's start with you. What's a truth you've carried, the one that stops you from being who you wish to be?" Emily exhaled shakily. The answer hovered at the edge of her consciousness, tangible yet elusive. "I have this fear that I've failed my daughter before she could even begin to see me as whole." The moment felt monumental. She was not merely uncovering a secret, but was also bravely revealing her inner turmoil. "Every choice I make feels like a gamble. I struggle to balance ambition with the reality of being a mother. What happens when I want more for myself? What if I end up sacrificing what matters most?" His eyes softened, reflecting understanding. "You're not alone. You deserve to pursue your dreams just as much as she deserves to see her mother happy." His words wrapped around her, creating a cocoon of acceptance. But the reality of the risks still loomed large. How would pursuing her dreams impact her daughter? Would ambition eclipse family, or could she harmonize both? The conversation had woven a deeper intimacy, propelling them into the rawness of their shared vulnerabilities. Yet fear still coiled around her heart like a constrictor. What if they stripped away these layers, only to discover something they couldn't overcome? "Facing my truth isn't just about revealing the past," she said, her voice steadying. "It's about all the decisions I have to make now that could fracture us. This connection, my daughter's future." Jack leaned closer, his presence offering an anchor. Then let's plan for those decisions together. Each step can be a conversation, a moment of trust. I'm not going anywhere. Could his words be a lifeline? Underneath the surface, she felt the currents of fear and hope mingling. What if, through shared vulnerability, they could build something resilient enough to withstand life's tempests? With renewed clarity, she grasped his hand tightly in hers. Okay, let's take the plunge, but we will be each other's compass, navigating together. As night began to settle around them, the shadows morphed, whispering of challenges yet to come. Emily tried to quell the gnawing apprehension, while recognizing that embarking on this journey meant exposing herself to uncertainty. She could lose so much, yet stand to gain everything. But somewhere, buried within her determination, she knew this moment could propel her toward discovery, not just of herself, but of what their bond might grow to become. Little did she realize, the next confrontation lurking just on the horizon would shake those newly forged foundations to their core. Would their resolved intentions hold firm when the storm broke? As dusk fell, casting elongated shadows, she wondered if perhaps they were truly prepared to face the torrent awaiting them. The next morning dawned with an uneasy tranquility. Emily watched the sunlight spill through her kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of the conversation that had nudged her towards the precipice of courage. She felt the weight of the day pressing upon her chest, a mix of responsibility and the stirring desire for something greater, something that pulsed just beneath her skin. As she prepared breakfast for her daughter, the mundane motions carried a charge of anticipation. Each flip of the pancake and pour of juice felt like a secret ritual, a preparation for possibilities yet to unfold. But as soon as her daughter bounded into the kitchen, bright-eyed and giggling, the bubble began to deflate. She was reminded of the choices resting heavily on her shoulders.
"Mommy, what are we doing today?" her daughter chimed, her innocence radiating warmth. Emily's heart ached at the question. What could she offer that would be both nurturing and fulfilling? "How about we do something fun this afternoon? Maybe a trip to the art gallery?" Her daughter's face lit up at the suggestion, revealing how starved they both were for exploration beyond their daily routines. But as excitement bubbled forth, a voice in the back of Emily's mind whispered doubts. Would a day spent indulging her artistic passions take away from the practicality required for parental duties? The oscillating dichotomy of her ambitions haunted her, tethered to a fear that perhaps she was selfish for wanting more. An hour later, she found herself in front of her laptop, tucked in the corner of the living room, distracted by the online listings of art classes. The longing burned brighter within her, intertwining with guilt each time she felt exhilaration bubbling up. This was her opportunity, yet it felt like an encroachment on her mothering. As she navigated the websites filled with vibrant images of abstract canvases and expressive sculptures, a message notification popped up on her phone. Jack's name glowed on the screen, and her pulse quickened in response. "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said last night. How about we meet for coffee today? I want to hear more about your dreams." The invitation sent a thrilling jolt through her. Here was an opportunity to explore her aspirations, not just in solitude, but with someone who was offering his support. The thrill was tempered by hesitation. What if he saw her foolish ambitions as fleeting whims? What if his investment in her was only temporary? Taking a deep breath, she replied affirmatively, her resolve strengthening. The prospect of sharing her dreams, her fears, with someone who genuinely cared felt like an act of bravery rather than a betrayal. Later, as she sat across from Jack in the little cafe, the world around them faded. Jack leaned forward, his eyes intent. "So, tell me, Emily, what stirs your spirit? What does your heart crave?" Her fingers drummed nervously on the table, but as she began to speak, a flood of thoughts spilled forth. I've always had this passion for art. It was my escape, my joy, but I let my obligations weigh it down. I fear I'll fail if I venture back into it." Jack listened intently, and she could see the faintest hint of admiration flickering in his gaze. "But imagine if you embraced that ambition. What if your daughter sees you chasing after what you love? Wouldn't that inspire her?" His words ignited a quiet rebellion within her. Could her daughter remember these moments when she looked back? Not as the child of a struggling single mom, but as the daughter of a woman who had the courage to unearth her truths? The tension within her twisted, and she realized it was no longer just about her. It was seed planting for the future.
Yet doubt always lurked on the periphery of her revelations, whispering cold warnings against reckless decisions. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, a text message lit up Jack's phone. He glanced down, his expression shifting slightly. "I'm sorry, I have to take this," he murmured, standing abruptly. Emily felt that familiar clutching sensation in her chest as she watched him step outside the cafe, leaving her with fleeting thoughts of revelations and aspirations hanging in the air like unfinished art. Moments stretched in his absence, and for the first time she confronted the nagging question: what if pursuing her dreams meant putting herself at risk of failure or rejection? What was she truly willing to sacrifice for the sake of becoming whole? As Jack re-entered the cafe, his demeanor slightly altered, she sensed a shift, a disruption in their budding connection. The current of clarity she felt seconds ago retreated, leaving her once again in a tangled web of uncertainty. "Sorry about that," he said, but there was a hesitance in his voice. Emily's heart raced. She felt the fragile threads of this connection tauten, teetering on the edge of either deepening or fracturing. Unsettled, she realized she was at a crossroads. Would she dare to forge ahead, joining Jack in shared vulnerability, or step back and protect herself from potential heartbreak? The air grew thick with tension, and as they locked eyes, the lingering question echoed in her mind. Could this relationship withstand the truth that had yet to surface? Emily sat at the cafe table, the buzz of conversation around her fading into a monotone hum. Jack's presence loomed heavily, a mixture of familiarity and uncertainty swirling in the air between them. The impulse to be open wrestled against the instinct to guard her vulnerabilities. She inhaled sharply, aware of how the angle of his body, slightly turned away, signaled a shift. The connection they shared moments earlier now felt precarious, as if it teetered at the edge of a fragile cliff. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," she finally admitted, her voice unsteady. "You're right about pursuing my passions for my daughter's sake. But what if I fail?" "Failure is part of the process," Jack said, his eyes reflecting a steely resolve. "What's more important is trying. Don't you want her to see you chasing your joy, to inspire her to follow her dreams, even if it gets tough? You could be a living example of resilience." Emily bit her lip, the weight of his words settling onto her shoulders like a boulder. She contemplated her daughter's future, imagining a path shaped by her actions today. Could she show her that embracing life meant risking disappointment? Yet the fear echoed louder than her aspirations. The thought of stumbling, of exposing her failures, sent a chill down her spine. "What if I just mess everything up?" she murmured, her vulnerability unbinding from its usual confines. Jack leaned forward, his posture radiating encouraging energy. "You're facing the same uncertainty as everyone else. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, it'll never come. The world isn't safe. It's about navigating through the chaos. You owe it to yourself and to her to at least try." His unwavering gaze anchored her, yet doubt crept in with every breath. She considered those moments of quiet resolve, the passionate daydreams that had danced in her thoughts for years now. They felt like remnants of a different life, long submerged beneath the pressures of responsibility. How would she reclaim that passionate woman she once was without dismantling the security of her present? Seconds stretched into an uncomfortable silence before Jack's phone lit again, pulling him from her gaze.
This time it wasn't a simple text, it glowed with a pending call. Jack hesitated, his fingers dancing over the screen, a palpable tension radiating from him. "Do you need to take it?" Emily asked, trying to dismiss the narrative that formed in her mind, the tale of retreat and abandonment. But she felt it, the distance that crept back, the thread drawing him away. "Maybe I should," he replied, his voice softer. Emily raised her brow. She understood that sometimes disconnection was easier than facing too much too soon. "No, don't," she found herself saying, her tone firmer than she intended. "I want to talk. I need to talk. Just stay." Jack looked torn, grappling with the choice between an obligation and their conversation. And just like that, she confronted not only her fears about the future, but the implications of vulnerability in relationships. It was a reckoning moment. Let the conversation veer into deeper territories of truth, or allow it to fade beneath mundane obligations, re-entering safe but unchallenging paradigms. "Right," he exhaled slowly, his phone resting in his palm. As he put it down, Emily sensed a shared understanding between them, a bridge being constructed amidst their confusion. "What if pursuing my dreams means redefining my priorities?" she articulated, the realization clawing its way up. "I think it means evolving," Jack offered, his expression earnest. "Embrace the idea that both can coexist. You can be both a mother and an artist, and that doesn't diminish either role." Craving change, gripping on to newfound determination, Emily let the potential unfold before her like a masterpiece yet to be painted. Perhaps it was time to confront her fears head-on, to create rather than merely exist. Just as she felt a swell of courage, the cafe door swung open, bells jingling. A small child rushed in, flanked by a panicked adult, a scene unfolding that juxtaposed sharply against her moment of awakening. With a sense of urgency crashing over her like a tide, Emily's heart raced at the unforeseen interruption. Had destiny drawn this child to grab her attention, forcing her to reckon with her resolve right here, right now? As the room filled with commotion, she found herself wrestling with the encroaching sense of urgency and fear. What destiny awaited her now? Emily sat in the cafe, the air thick with tension and unspoken words. But today, everything shifted for her as she finally recognized what had been stifling her spirit. She was tired of dwelling in shadows, constantly second-guessing her desires and allowing fear to dictate her choices. It was time to reclaim her narrative and emerge stronger. "Jack," she began, her voice steady, "I can't live in fear anymore. I want to pursue my passion for art, no matter the risks. I need my daughter to see that ambition is worth pursuing, even if it's messy." Jack's expression lit up, the weight of his earlier hesitation lifting. "That's the spirit, Emily. I believe you can do it. You have the talent. You've just buried it beneath responsibilities." His support ignited a spark within her. "I've been scared, but I know now that fear can either paralyze us or propel us forward. I'll choose to move forward." Jack nodded, a proud smile spreading across his face. "Let's create a plan. We'll start with small steps. Classes, art supplies, anything you need." The excitement coursing through her veins drowned out past apprehensions. The storms of self-doubt faded into a distant memory as she looked into his eyes, knowing she was not alone. "You're right. I will need your support, Jack. But I can't build a future with fear hanging over me. We need to face our realities." Taking a deep breath, she laid her thoughts bare. "I need you to share your fears too, just like I'm being vulnerable with you." In that moment, they were linked by a shared desire to break free from societal confines. Jack's expression shifted to one of understanding, and he slowly began to reveal his struggles, his family's expectations, and the loneliness of living a life dictated by wealth. "Honestly, I want to create something of my own, away from the legacy that surrounds me. I yearn for meaning beyond what I've been conditioned to pursue," he confided. A realization washed over Emily.
Their stories intertwined, two complex lives forming a whirlwind of ambition and aspiration. This isn't just a fleeting connection. It was an invitation to something profound. "I want to support you too, Jack. Let's inspire each other," she suggested, a newfound confidence blooming. The barriers between them began to dissolve, replaced by the knowledge that together they could confront any obstacles life threw their way. The urgency of the cafe around them melted away, replaced by the world they envisioned for themselves. They dared to dream it all, the art, the joy, the love. With renewed determination, Emily found herself signing up for an art class that night. She delved into preparations, creating mood boards that captured her essence. Each stroke felt like a declaration of independence. As her motherly responsibilities intertwined with her personal aspirations, she knew the balance would be tough but rewarding. Weeks later, she stood in her makeshift studio, a corner in her living room, transformed by canvases, brushes, and colors bursting with potential. Underneath this artistic exploration lay the very essence of empowerment. Each piece expressed a part of her journey, a testament to overcoming fear and reclaiming her identity. The true triumph came not just in the act of creating, but in sharing it with Lily. "Look, sweetheart, this is me following my dreams," she exclaimed, her daughter's eyes wide with admiration. "Mommy, this is beautiful! You're amazing!" Those words reverberated through Emily's soul. For the first time, she felt seen and validated, not just as a mother, but as a passionate artist embracing her individuality. Jack visited their home, delighted by the transformation. "You're truly special, Emily. You've taken the leap." His eyes reflected pure admiration, solidifying the bond they had forged in vulnerability. And in that glow of recognition, Emily had achieved what she once believed was unattainable. She had reclaimed her voice, modeled courage for her daughter, and dared to create a life rich with passion. Ultimately, Emily had proven to herself that facing fears could transform dreams into tangible reality. With Jack by her side, they shaped the narrative of their individual lives, while building a future neither had anticipated. As she painted, laughter mingled with the vibrant colors, a harmonious blend of motherhood and ambition, pushing her towards further growth. They stood on the precipice of an exciting new chapter, armed with confidence and wonder. Now, with perspectives shifted and a solid resolve, Emily smiled. Knowing she no longer shied away from the storm, she welcomed it. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the journey of personal overcoming.